Welcome to Bosworth Battlefield, or the Battle of Bosworth Field. This is probably one of the most significant battlefields in the whole of medieval England. And for centuries and decades, people believe that the battlefield was actually here behind me. I'm stood on top of Ambion Hill, where during the reign of King Richard III, his army were camped out on this hill. But Bosworth Battlefield is actually a lost battlefield. It's actually nowhere near where I'm stood at the moment, where the Heritage Centre is. It's actually about 3.5 kilometres to the southwest. What we're going to do today is we're going to try and find the lost battlefield of Bosworth. It's a battle where it changed English history forever. The Tudor period ushered in after the battle, with Richard III, one of the most notorious kings of the medieval period, being slain. We're going to try and find that place today. We're going to try and find where this all happened. But Bosworth did not happen where I'm stood. Join us today to find the lost battlefield of medieval England. Remember to support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. So the battle happened in 1485. It saw the Welsh Henry Tudor come to England to take what he believed was rightfully his, the throne of the country, away from a man deemed by a number to be a usurper, King Richard III. Richard III came onto the throne in very, very suspicious circumstances following the disappearance of the Prince in the Tower. It's alleged that he had them murdered, but eventually, 2 years after his coronation, he would find himself in Leicestershire at the sharp end of a halberd, a bill, being battered. It's that battle that changed England forever and ushered in the Tudor period, the key era in the 1500s, where you saw kings and queens such as Elizabeth I, King Henry VIII reign, just so fondly remembered today in the psyche of English history. So behind me we have Ambion Hill. Famously, it was believed that the battle took place at the foot of Ambion Hill, where King Richard III's army were on top near where the tree is, and they ran down to meet Henry Tudor. During the battle, it was noted that Richard III was on top for a significant amount of the battle, but eventually things changed. And things changed with the intervention of one man in his mercenary army who chose to support Henry Tudor. It was said that Richard III came within a sword's length of Henry Tudor, and if he would have slain Henry Tudor, then that would have changed history forever. Richard III would have remained on the throne, and he wouldn't have been killed, and the Tudor era would probably never have happened. It's crazy to think how history changes. But behind me, this is Ambion Hill. This is where Richard III's army would have been camped out during the battle and before the battle. Probably on top, they'd be having lots of parties, ale, dancing maybe before, you know, maybe saying prayers as well to wish them good luck in battle. But yeah, this is Ambion Hill. We know this is where Richard III was before the battle started. But the battle did not take place at the foot of Ambion Hill. It took place all the way in that direction over there. And we're going to go there a bit later.
The Yorkist Royalist army supporting Richard III was made up of between 7,500 and 12,000 soldiers on the hilltop of Ambion Hill. On top of the hill, Richard III had a brilliant line of sight and could see the whole area, including Henry Tudor's forces and also the Stanley's mercenary army around Adlington Hill. Henry's forces were less in number, and Henry himself was less experienced in battle, and he gave command of his forces to John de Vere, the Earl of Oxford. He kept his forces together, and they were being hit by the king's cannons. Oxford left an area of marshland, and then Richard ordered his forces to attack. Arrows fired towards both armies, and they came together in brutal hand-to-hand fighting. Richard then saw the chance to end the battle quickly, and he charged towards Henry Tudor as he saw him across the battlefield.
What's amazing about British history and history in general is there's still so much to be untold, and that's what is absolutely incredible. When Richard III's body was found and his remains were found in Leicester under a car park, it showed significant damage to the skull, and from that scientists have been able to piece together what actually happened in the final moments of the Battle of Bosworth Field. It was known that Richard fell from his horse in marshy ground and was absolutely decimated by a number of soldiers, pikemen, cavalry soldiers and so on. But it's very interesting to consider what we now know about the battle. There have been a number of archaeological discoveries that place the battlefield 3.5 kilometres away from the traditional site that was believed for centuries to have happened at. So behind me is a field where Richard III's army would have come down to meet Henry Tudor's, somewhere in the distance over there, and also they would have ran back after being sent back by Henry Tudor's army. In this field there's been a lot of different historical discoveries found and different artefacts relating to a battle and an army as well. But what would have happened is Richard's forces would have come from this way, ran down that way to go and meet Henry's forces, and then when they were pushed back, they'd run back up towards Ambion Hill where their camp was. By the end of the battle, 1,000 soldiers lay dead on the battlefield, most of them, the majority, fighting for Richard III, the royalist army. But where is the battlefield? It's nowhere near where most people perceive it to be. And what we're going to do is we're going to go and have a walk over there shortly to see what's there, what it looks like. And it's very, very plain compared to what you'd think. It's a field, there's nothing else there, but interestingly some of the discoveries that were made in the field relate specifically to King Richard III. There was a silver gilt boar badge that was found there, the king's insignia, and other different artefacts relating to the king, such as weapons, armour, cannon shot and so on. They were all found in this one particular field where it's known to be very marshy and boggy.
Charging towards the enemy, Richard and a group of mounted men made their way close to Henry Tudor. Henry was surrounded by the remaining members of his personal bodyguard, who would die to protect their master. But seeing Henry in trouble, Lord Stanley joined the battle on the side of Henry. He had previously been observing from a hill, and Stanley's men charged in and attacked Richard's. Richard was driven a significant distance back, a few hundred metres in the boggy marshland. In this difficult terrain, Richard and his horse came into difficulty, and near to the edge of the marsh, Richard became unhorsed. This left the King of England vulnerable, but he refused to retreat, proclaiming, "God forbid that I retreat one step. I will either win the battle as a king or die as one." But the fighting around him was ferocious. His standard-bearer had his legs cut off, and other close friends were killed. Polydore Virgil, the official historian to Henry Tudor, claimed that Richard III alone was killed fighting manfully in the thickest presses of his enemies, coming within a sword's length of Henry Tudor before he was cut down. It was believed William Stanley's men slaughtered the king, with a Welshman striking a fearsome blow with a halberd into his skull. The recovery of his remains, after they were found under a car park in Leicester, revealed the bloody extent of his injuries, with 11 wounds sustained, with 9 of them being to Richard's head. The blow from a weapon such as a halberd was so violent that it drove the king's helmet into his skull, and even sliced off part of it. The royalist army then heard news of King Richard III's death, and his forces scattered. The king's body was stripped before it was placed onto a horse, and then taken into the city of Leicester, where it was displayed.
So we're now going to go from Ambion Hill, which is the site of the memorial you can see behind me, and the flags, and we're going to go to Fenn Lane, the actual site of the battlefield and the site where King Richard III was killed in battle. So welcome to the true site of the Battle of Bosworth Field. This behind me is a field just off of Fenn Lane. It's in these fields here and over the other side of the road where lots of archaeological discoveries relating to a medieval battle were found. I mentioned a badge earlier which allegedly could have belonged to Richard III or one of his supporters, which was found in this area along here. You can see we are a long way from Ambion Hill, where it was claimed for centuries that the battle took place. In terms of a battlefield, you can see it's very, very flat, which would have good sight lines for any soldier, but it's down here and it's allegedly on this sort of marshy land where Richard III was killed in battle. So it's amazing to think that in this field in Leicestershire, King Richard III could have been slain, one of England's kings. I hope you've enjoyed this video and hope you found it a little bit different. Please make sure to support our channel, please make sure to like, share and also subscribe to The Fortress. Thank you and have a lovely day.